This is the Red Podcast post-Halloween special, business and marketing lessons that you can learn from the biggest adult holiday in the United States. That's coming up.
This is the Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Rise above the noise. Expand your audience. Deliver impact. Here's your host, David Hooper.
I'm going to read you something that I saw on Facebook this week. I'm sad. I bought $30 worth of candy for the children in my neighborhood. I love Halloween. I love dressing up. I love costumes. I love candy. I love it all. I always have. I'm so let down by the community. I've never experienced such disrespectful kids in my life and cannot believe their parents encourage their behavior. With the exception of a couple great kids who were brought hand in hand to my door by their parents, no one said please, thank you, or yes ma'am. Before I could tell the kids to take 1 or 2 pieces each, which is normal and how it's always been done, they battled to my door, nearly ripping my bowl of candy out from my hands, grabbing instead, taking fistfuls of candy. I was shocked. I couldn't even process the disrespect, and the parents were standing on the sidewalk saying, "Get it, baby. Get that candy." What the f***? Seriously? No exaggeration. This was 95% of the people that came by. Some parents physically joining in on grabbing candy from me. I'm let down. Is this how we're raising our children? Is this the future of our country? Nothing is given. It is always earned. Tough shit, kiddos, but even on Halloween, your treat is earned, and it's quite simple. Smile, say please, say thank you, be gracious, and spread love and respect. I hope this was just my block and other people did not experience the disappointment that I did this evening. Let's be better. Happy Halloween. This is the Red Podcast, the podcast for influencers. If you're a blogger, podcaster, speaker, marketer, nonfiction author, you're an entrepreneur with a message to spread, this is the podcast for you. You are in the right place. That's what I'm going to help you do. Spread your message and make people care about it. How's that done? By making a name for yourself. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you how to make money doing it. I talk about book publishing, podcasting, speaking, and other marketing elements of your business that you must master to grow and engage your audience. That's what RED stands for. Reach, expand, and develop your audience. You know the best way to do that? Get a mailing list. If you have avoided email, you're thinking social media is the hot thing, you are missing out. You are missing out on connection. You are missing out on money. I've got a great way for you to create a list right now. It's called ConvertKit. You'll be amazed at what you can do targeting messages to the people who want them. People will be excited to hear from you. If you don't mail them, people will be emailing you wondering why not. Go to createyourlist.com today for a free 30-day trial. Get the kit. Go to createyourlist.com today for your free 30-day trial. On this episode, I'm talking about business lessons from Halloween. This year in the United States, $3.8 billion was spent on Halloween. It is a huge holiday. It's not just kids, it's adults that are getting in on Halloween. What are the lessons that we can learn from Halloween, and how can you use them to grow your business? Taking it back to the letter that I just read, I got that on social media. I saw it in my Facebook feed. A couple of things that she said that I want to highlight. She said, before I could tell the kids to take 1 or 2 pieces each, which is normal and how it's always been, I want to make the point that that's how it's always been for her. I think we need to be very careful when we get into what is normal or that's the way we've always done things. As an example, let's take the sponsor of this episode, an email service provider. It was normal for a long time to focus on building a list, and then it wasn't. And now we've got a lot of new entrepreneurs, new influencers who've come in since email marketing was hot, and they're saying YouTube, podcasting, blogging, this is the way it's always been done. No, it's not. You've got to know your history. You've got to be willing to change with the times. And now we're going back to email marketing. Email marketing is hot again. That's why they're sponsoring this episode, because people like you are going back to email marketing. So just realize that whenever we say that's the way it's always been, that is dangerous. Maybe for you, but not necessarily for other people. So let me tell you about my Halloween experience. Live in an urban neighborhood, lots of super cool kids. It's been unseasonably warm here in Nashville. I was actually outside in shorts, hanging out with my wife on the steps that lead up to our house. We got sidewalks in my neighborhood. Kids would come walking by, come up the path to the house. Laurel and I are sitting on the steps. They would say trick or treat. We would give them some candy. They would go on to the next house. Most of them had parents with them. Very organized, lots of young kids. We met a lot of really cool families that night. Then we'd have the groups come out. Now, I live in this neighborhood. It's kind of on the edge. I guess we would call it regentrification. It's an urban neighborhood just down the road, maybe a mile. Got a lot of housing projects. The only house on my street right now is for sale for $1.2 million. So it's a couple of different worlds coming together. And I'm not saying these guys were coming from the projects, but literally we would have cars pull up right in front of the house. 4 or 5 kids would run out. They'd not say anything, grab candy, go to the next house, not say anything, grab candy, hop back in the car. The car would drive 2 or 3 doors down. Then they do the same thing all over again. All night, cars driving up and down my street. I don't know where these guys came from. My thought is that instead of walking from house to house, sticking to your neighborhood for Halloween, a lot of people just hop in the car and hit everywhere. Then the teenagers came out. The teenagers, some of them weren't even dressed up at all. One guy, he said he was dressed up. He said he was a vampire. Just had a black t-shirt on. Last year, I had a guy with just a bag, told me he was a robber. Thought that was pretty creative. But a black t-shirt, vampire? In that case, Steve Jobs was a vampire every day of his life. But that's the hierarchy. You've got kids that are really into it. You've got these families. You got people that are using automation. They just want candy, and they're going to try to get as much of it as they can. They don't really care about the experience that the younger kids did. You've got teenagers. I don't know what these kids are doing. Way too old to trick or treat, in my opinion. But what the hell? It's Halloween. Have some candy. So let's talk about the big lessons for you and your business. What are the things that you can learn from and then apply to your business based on these kids that I'm talking about? And the first thing, I think the biggest thing from this experience is that lots of people want something for nothing. The lady who wrote the letter, she was right when she said that your treat is earned. Sort of. If you've listened to Red Podcast before, you've probably heard me mention this quote. It's from Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret audio, the first spoken word gold record that came out about 50 years ago. And Earl Nightingale said that if you want heat, you have to put the wood in the oven first. A lot of people, they go to an oven, they go to a stove, and they say, give me the heat, but they haven't put the wood in. And in a way, that's what some of these kids were doing. They weren't really earning their treat. They weren't playing the game of Halloween, dressing up, saying trick or treat. They're just showing up and expecting to get something just for showing up. That doesn't happen in business. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody pays for it. So how does this apply to you? Obviously, if you want something, you've got to put the effort in to get it. But the reason I bring it up on this episode is because sometimes, like those teenage trick-or-treaters that are just going to grab all your candy, run to the next house, grab their candy without saying anything, and continue to work their way down the street. Sometimes we've got customers like that. Sometimes people want all they can get for free. I've got a buddy of mine, every time we go to a burrito place like Chipotle where you have to go down the line, he doesn't care if he likes it as long as it's free. They'll say, would you like this? Would you like this? Would you like this? Well, yeah, as long as it's free. So at the end, he ends up with a huge free burrito, and he feels like he's getting a deal because it's got more stuff on it than mine, but I don't think he likes it as much. Yeah, it's free. He can feel like he got something, but mine is exactly what I want. If you're on the internet, you're giving away ebooks, or you're doing a podcast, or videos on YouTube, or maybe you're a coach and you're doing free sessions to try to get more clients in, you are going to have people take advantage of that. They don't respect your work. They don't really want it. They're like my buddy at the burrito stand, just feels like he got something. Give me, give me, give me. And they're hoarding all this free stuff because they feel like it's going to have some kind of value, but they're not getting the value out of it. And the reason I bring this up here is because it's super easy to get discouraged by these people. This woman wrote an entire post about it. I'm sad. I bought $30 worth of candy for the children in my neighborhood. I love Halloween. I love dressing up. I love costumes. I love candy. I love it all. I always have. And she's sad because people took advantage of her generosity. She went out to the store. She used her money to buy this candy, probably had things decorated, put in a lot of effort because she loves Halloween and people did not respect it. And that hurts. And it's super easy to get discouraged. It is super easy when you put a lot of time into a podcast, YouTube videos, blog posts, and your other content, and people don't respect it. But that is how the game works. Not everybody's going to respect it. And the alternative, if you just wanted to shut down, and I'm not sure what this woman is going to do, but let's say that she says, forget it. Forget it. I love Halloween, but these kids are assholes. I'm not participating next year. A lot of business people do that. You seen these guys who want to be paid for everything? I launched a new podcast last month. Laurel and I were back in the podcasting game together. This is called Pro Coach, specifically for people who have coaching businesses. If you want to go to redpodcast.com/boo, I'll have a link to Pro Coach Podcast there. That podcast, unlike Red, is almost exclusively interviews. It's me interviewing successful coaches and talking about how they're marketing themselves. Reached out to a lot of people. A couple of them, are you making money on it? Am I going to be paid for this? What's the upside for me? That was their first thought. They want that heat without putting the wood in. Used to work with a musician. This guy was upcoming. He was going places. He would get on the radio for interviews, take his guitar with him, and then he wouldn't want to play it. Oh yeah, you need to buy the album if you want to hear me play. You need to come to the show tonight if you want to hear me play. Well, what the hell, man? Why did you take a guitar to your radio interview if you're not going to play it? These DJs were giving him great opportunities, just assumed that he wanted to perform because that's what musicians do, and he wouldn't. Or he just performed the intro. Yeah, if you want the full song, you got to come tonight. Big mistake. You're going to do a lot better if you show people what you do fully rather than give them just a little piece and hold back and expect them to pay for more. That rarely happens. So that's the alternative. You hold back. And that's what a lot of information marketers, a lot of influencers, a lot of people with ideas to spread are doing. But you're going to miss out on a lot of great people if you quit entirely. And you're going to miss out on a lot of great people if you hold back. I think it's important to remember that payment does not always happen directly. Payment, when you're giving out this free information, could be because everybody's got your information. Everybody starts to recognize you as an authority. You know Microsoft, huge company. If you're on a PC, you're probably using the Windows operating system. Microsoft loses, and I say that in quotes, millions of dollars per year because people steal, and by that I mean make illegal copies of, the Windows operating system. Does Microsoft care? Yeah, probably. But how many times do you see a PC that doesn't run Windows? Rarely. I know there are other operating systems. I know it happens, but most PCs have Windows. And because of that, Microsoft has been able to make money on the back end. The same is true for you. When your information gets out there, when you're the authority, I'd give away books all day long if I could get consulting gigs out of it, if I could get audiobook sales out of it, if I could sell it in some other format like audiobooks, if I could get speaking gigs. When you've got the back end and you've got other streams of income, you can give your information out all day long. So who cares that you've got the equivalent of these teenagers that don't dress up, coming and taking it, and not respecting it? Yeah, you're going to have those people, but you're also going to have the equivalent of the little kids where it really means a lot and it's important to them. You've got the equivalent of them in your business. Those are the people that you want to focus on. That's my big rant for this episode. Focus on the people that matter. Forget the few people that trickle through that don't play by the rules that you want them to. Don't worry about them. I do have a few more big Halloween ideas that I'm going to run by you. One, grass is always greener. Inside, always different from the outside. People want to be somebody else. That's why we spend $3.8 billion on Halloween. We want to be somebody else for a time. Identity, such a funny thing. Like Halloween, anybody can be somebody for a night. anybody in your business can be somebody else via podcasting, email, YouTube, and you used to be able to fool people. I've been in the entertainment business for a long time, before we had social media, before we had paparazzi, before we had all this news coverage that never, ever stops, runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You used to be able to fool people. Not anymore. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but it is carefully contrived. You've got to have a team. I know some gay country stars, a couple of them. One of them, a household name, and she has a huge team around her. Everybody's making money. They're not going to out her. Insiders know. Outsiders don't know. If you don't have that team, it can be super hard to fool people. But really, who wants to fool people? Wouldn't you rather be yourself? You know, this happens all the time in the entertainment business when people are on the payroll. Went to go see a comic, hadn't seen him for a while. This guy's super conservative. He's gone way right-wing. Now that our political climate is changing, he's taking advantage of that. Mentioned it to a buddy of mine in the comedy business. This guy's a writer. He goes, you know he's gay, right? What? Had no idea. So it can be done, but do you really want to live your life like that? We take it back to the Halloween analogy. What really connected for me on Halloween night was seeing these little kids that were super authentic, super excited, and put the effort into things. Nobody cares about the posers. Nobody cares about the teenagers who show up in a black shirt saying they're a vampire. Nobody cares about the teenagers or the adults even that show up with a Ziploc bag or a Kroger bag, not putting any effort into anything except coming up to your door and trying to grab as much candy as they can. Nobody cares about them. And the same thing is true for you. You've got to put the wood in the stove before you can get the heat out. Nobody cares about the posers. So show up fully, give of yourself. If you've got an offer, you've got some way to monetize that, it's going to work for you. But don't be afraid that somebody's going to steal from you. There's enough in the world for you to go out and get your piece of it. Coming up on the next episode of Red Podcast, I'm talking about how to be everywhere. I'll be honest with you. I think it's complete bullshit. No, you shouldn't be everywhere, but I'm going to talk about it because plenty of people are giving out this advice and it is wrong. That's next on Red Podcast. To make sure that you never miss an episode, go to redpodcast.com. One click is all it takes. If you're on an iPhone, an Android, if you get your podcast via the web, one click is all it takes to subscribe, and that makes sure that you never miss an episode. If you've got questions or comments, reach out to me on Twitter. @David Hooper is my username. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time on the next episode of Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Never miss an episode. Subscribe now with your iPhone, Android, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.